all starting to heat up ahead of the elections for next year. Actionsa announcing Kwena Mangope as its Northwest Premier candidate ahead of the 2024 elections. And no, you haven't missed anything. We still don't have an election date, but certainly it's starting to heat up, and the country is getting ready for that. The party leader, Herman Mashaba, says Mangope is going to restore the province to its former glory if he is elected. But who is this person? Who is going to be the one heading it up for Actionsa? Let's find out. Reporter Moloko Moloto tracking that for us and joining us now. Moloko, so let's just try and get a sense here. Who exactly are we talking about? The name sounds familiar. Kwena Mangope. What do we know?
Well, Kwena Mangope is the son of the former leader of the homeland of Bophuthatswana, and the man who resisted change, the man who really never wanted Bophuthatswana and other homelands to be integrated into the new South Africa. Also, he is a former soldier in the previous apartheid government, but also he served under this current government. And he is also the local senior traditional leader in some of the villages there in Northwest. And he is a leader of the Actionsa as a party in the Northwest province. He's been handpicked by Herman Mashaba because he has that authority to appoint people both in the Senate and as well as the premier candidates for the party. Now, today he was announced as the premier candidate for the Northwest province, and of course the premier candidates for other provinces are yet to be announced. But what was interesting for me was that here is a former soldier who is saying that we must reinstate military conscription. People, in other words, must be forced to join the army. And he was given the marching orders by Herman Mashaba, who, by the way, adored his father. So this affinity between the two of them obviously dates back then when Lucas Mangope was still in the position of authority. So his son is saying that if elected, he will restore law and order. And he is saying in his words that the people were calling his father a dictator, but that can be correct. However, if there's anything that the late Mangope Sr. was doing unapologetically, was to restore law and order, which he says are important and essential for any society to thrive. Maybe let's listen to him.
You'll be seeing somebody who would want the province to be run properly. We have laws that must be enforced, and there is no dictatorship with that regard. Our people want law and order. And also remember that, you know what God said? He said, I'm a God of order. So we really need to emphasize that for our people, for the province to have people coming to invest in the province. No investor will come in a disorderly province. So that really should be the most important thing that I will have to see that it's happening in the Northwest.
So handpicked by Herman Mashaba himself, I imagine that there's not just because he could be a good candidate, but I imagine it's someone that Herman Mashaba believes can actually get the job done as well. What did Herman Mashaba have to say about this?
Well, Herman Mashaba, the president of Actionsa, adored the late Lucas Mangope. He believes that he was running the former Bophuthatswana properly. There were jobs that he believes he was creating, and there was law and order. And he is convinced that this man will do the right job for Actionsa. Obviously, if you look at the phenomenal growth or the performance really of Actionsa, particularly because they contested the elections for the first time in 2021, the local government elections. I mean, they did very well. They surpassed in some municipalities, specifically the city of Johannesburg, other parties that had been there for ages. I mean, you have the ANC with the highest number of seats in Johannesburg, followed by the Democratic Alliance, and the Actionsa is the third biggest party with 44 seats, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, 44 exactly, followed by the EFF, which was contesting for the second time with 29 seats. So I'm not even talking about ACDP, COPE and UDM and other smaller parties that are 1%ers. Yeah. So Herman Mashaba is confident that he will be able to make inroads, and people like Kwena Mangope will assist him in that regard. And I did ask to say, with so much power vested in you as an individual to decide who is appointed in the party, and not only in the Senate, but also the nominees for the premier candidate, isn't that more, considering the fact that you are friends with Kwena Mangope, where is democracy there? But let's listen to him as he was defending himself.
Well, I think you'll have to really be have some kind of mental illness. If you're going to run business, you're going to run government on the basis of getting incompetent people around you, elected by other people. If you look at the constitution of Actionsa adopted by Senate, we ensured that if you are the president of Actionsa, you are a provincial chairperson of Actionsa, you take responsibility for people around you, and it's something that will continue even beyond 2024 when we just now start running with a formal constitution, because our constitution right now, it's an interim constitution adopted after running the process of the People's Dialogue. I'd like to just really give you a historical context of how Actionsa was started. Remember, was the mayor of the city of Johannesburg, and then ANC and DA planned to have a motion of no confidence against me, and then I decided to resign.
And I suppose there's going to be questions now being asked as well, and you can refer to the conversation you had with Herman Mashaba, of course you can, Moloko, in reference to this, is that in any political party now heading for next year's elections, whatever date that is, do you think a political party like Actionsa wants a party leader that has people around him who agree with him all the time, or specifically, deliberately, wants people who don't agree with him all the time? And I suppose it's two very different ways of handling your own political party, isn't it?
So Herman Mashaba, I mean, I asked him if he's not showing signs of dictatorship.
You used the word dictatorship.
I said, I mean, the fact that you have so much power, it's got all the hallmarks of dictatorship. And you heard him. He says the Constitution gives me this authority. Importantly, he says you cannot surround yourself with people who really do not believe in your vision. And he even gave an example of the time when President Cyril Ramaphosa was first elected party president alongside Ace Magashule as Secretary General. He believed that the two really never had a similar vision, and he says he doesn't want that in his own political party. But on the other hand, you would know that Herman Mashaba has been very clear that he supports the reinstatement of the death penalty. And at some point he had even said that if elected, he, as President of the Republic, he will make sure that he removes South Africa out of the BRICS. Now, when they had their policy conference recently in the past few weeks, they reined in him. They said you cannot call for the reinstatement of the death penalty, but also you cannot ignore the importance of BRICS in the geopolitics. So he lost those two particular arguments. And I'm told by people who were in there that he was not a happy man when the majority said there's no way we're going to agree to the reinstatement of the death penalty because, in other words, you will be giving the state authority to kill people. And if you know the deficiencies within the criminal justice system, you may end up having the state kill innocent people, all because you have given it a license to kill. He concedes that he would go with the view of the majority. So maybe the accusation of dictatorship doesn't really hold that much. However, the fact that he already has so much authority to decide who is around him, I mean, the very same people in the Senate were appointed by him. He is saying that only the provincial chairs, when they go into a provincial conference, will be elected. But the other members of the Senate, who in the case of the ANC would be members of the National Executive Committee, are appointed by him. So he's a very powerful man.
And he'll make sure you know it. as well. I'm sure he'll make sure it very clear that you know it as well. Moloko, I'm going to say thank you for joining us this afternoon. So, Action SA, and as you heard now, two very pivotal points from the Action SA leader shot down, but it looks like the new premier candidate as far as Action SA is concerned for the Northwest, Kwena Mangope, coming out guns blazing, even talking about the return of conscription. I'd be curious to get your thoughts on that. So now, don't go anywhere.